I always like to check to see the latest headlines about robots and artificial intelligence taking over everyone's job. My favorite one over the past couple weeks was this. Humanity will live in a hellish dystopia as robots take over billions of jobs, leaving people to lead meaningless and miserable lives, claim scientists. Another article talked about how when all the jobs are gone, we will all become volunteers and make the world a better place. So we have these two extremes. On one hand, we'll all be Mad Max. On the other hand, we'll all be Mother Teresa. But the common theme from both of these points of view, whatever future we face, is that it will be one without jobs as we know them. And I believe that that is wrong for several years now, because we have certain traits as human beings that set us apart from machines. And even if scientists find ways to program these traits into robots or artificial intelligence, that does not mean those traits are deprogrammed in human beings. We will always have those traits. So what are the traits that not just make us human, but make us want to be utile, that make us want to work? The first trait is creativity. When you think about creativity, it's a distinctly human trait, and though we can program algorithms to simulate creative thinking, the creativity of machines will always be constrained by the input, the data. And human creativity does not have those constraints. Now, one could argue that our creativity is constrained by the depth of our experiences, but I believe the constraints to our creativity are much more limited than the constraints on AI creativity. And so as humans, we have an ability to take any product or service and with very limited constraints, think about how the product could be different, better, or have more utility to the customer. So instead of battling with technology, we need to creatively use technology to make products better. We need to marry the possibilities of brains and bytes. In lectures I give, I like to use the example of the ATM machine. Now, I don't know if this is fact, but Wikipedia tells me the first commercial money machine was launched by Barclays in the UK in the late 1960s. Now, did other banks give up when the first time they saw that ATM? No. Bankers thought about how to make it better for the customer. And at no point in the last 50 years did humanity say, we now have the greatest ATM machine and there's no possible way to make it better, we're done. Each version over the years was improved upon by creative minds. So creativity is the first human trait that will keep us at work. And we can continue with the ATM example when talking about the second human trait that sets us apart from machines. And that trait is competitiveness. Again, a distinctly human trait, though some humans are a little bit more competitive than others. Think about all the bankers that worked for someone other than Barclays back in the 1960s. Like I said, they didn't just give up when they saw that first ATM. Some of them probably came up with reasons why the technology would not catch on. You see it in every industry that gets transformed by technology. People who are in denial, refusing to believe that their customers will adopt or adapt to new ways of consuming a product or service. Other bankers back in the 60s were visionary and may have seen the potential and thought about ways to improve that original version of the ATM. Either way, whether you were a denier or a visionary, both of those responses were driven by the human competitive spirit, our desire to win. Now, you may lose because you didn't think the technology would last, so you didn't act fast enough to enter the market. Think Kodak and digital photography. But while thinking your product is better and cannot be threatened may be dumb, it's still a form of competitive behavior. Now, for a couple years, I only had two traits that I would discuss, creativity and competitiveness. And then I read a book and added a third trait. That book was A Curious Mind by Hollywood producer Brian Grazer. And the third human trait that sets us apart from machines is curiosity. Throughout Grazer's career, he has engaged in what he calls curiosity conversations with people, and usually not people within the Hollywood community. His goal was to get perspectives from people outside of his realm of people that he knew from different walks of life. Being curious about how other people live and how they work is a human differentiator. We can do surveys and ask people questions about their preferences and track their habits and take all that data and mash it in the cloud and predict what their future preferences are going to be. That's all part of being curious about our customers. But if we actually have a conversation with them without a defined agenda that is obvious to them, we will learn even more. How can I make my customers' experience better? How can I add more utility to my service offering? Again, I know we can program creativity and competitiveness and curiosity into artificial intelligence. But what's important is that number one, even when those traits are parts of machines, they will still and always be a part of us. And number two, while those traits can be programmed into AI, their effectiveness will always be constrained by the quality and extent of the input data. So don't worry, machines may make some jobs obsolete, and we probably all will face a time when part of our jobs are automated. But as long as we remain curious, creative, and competitive, there will be a place for humans in the workforce of the future.